What's up, guys? Welcome to Why Well Friends English, and today we've got another natural conversation for you.
Yeah, this is a follow-up video for our Phrasal Verbs of Education Part 1, and we're going to talk about some things that we experienced when we went to university and try to use some of those phrasal verbs that we talked about earlier this week.
Right, so let's jump in.
So we went to a liberal arts university, and
which does not mean it was liberal.
It just means that instead of focusing on one area of study, our university tried to make sure that everybody had a little bit of a lot of areas of study, so that they're not just skilled in one thing and not good in everything else.
The idea is that the university shapes one's worldview by giving them a little bit in everything. They dabble in all the subjects.
Which is really good, because, I mean, as freshmen, not many people are going to know exactly what they want to do or be after they graduate. So it's a good way to, I feel like, introduce people to, like, just school in general.
Yeah, and because of that, we didn't just have to choose classes based off of what had to be done first. That was true of our major classes, the classes that we focus on in our major. But outside of the major, you had this core curriculum that you had to do for about 2 years, and you could kind of take them in any order that you wanted.
Yeah, and there was even some freedom within that to kind of choose different paths. So it wasn't just this is what you're going to study. You go all the way through it. Right. That's it.
Yeah, you spread them out over the 4 years, do a little bit here and there. So what was your strategy with tackling your classes?
My strategy was to try to get the easy ones done first.
The easiest ones?
Yeah.
Really?
I think for me, in my mind, I was a little worried that studying in university would be hard. Like, I didn't know what it would be like. And a new GPA was important. Right. So I wanted to try to take the core classes that I thought were personally easiest first before going on to the harder, more challenging courses.
Right. Got it. Yeah, my goal was to take as many classes as possible inside of a semester, because I had a scholarship the first 2 years for everything. So my goal was to do as many hours as possible while having at least 2 or 3 classes in my major and minor.
Yeah. So you're like slowly chipping at your major while also completing the core classes.
Right, because I did not like the thought of going to university for a semester and not touching my major at all. Yeah. I did not like that idea. I wanted to be working at my major hours while completing as needed, completing the other hours. But it also meant I always had heavy classes and I always had light classes. Yeah. So it kind of balanced things out, and I had kind of the same workload all the way through instead of like all the easy things and then all the hard things.
Yeah. I think it also helped because I came into university with just a few hours already given to me. Yeah. So like for us, we were basically on the same track, but I was just slightly ahead of you. So you were kind of catching up to me. But I did notice that you were able to take some upper level major classes before I could take it, just because of that pushing forward at the beginning.
Right, because the major classes had prerequisites. There were things that you had to take before you could take the next level up. Yeah. And so I took all the required major freshman classes my first semester.
Oh, wow.
So I took my first sophomore class for my major in my freshman year. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So.
Yeah, and it's different too, because our university, when we signed up for classes, they did like a time frame. So like the seniors would sign up first, and then the juniors, and then the sophomores, then the freshmen.
Just to make sure the seniors got into the classes they needed that were only available that semester. Some were spring classes, some were fall classes.
Right, so they could actually graduate on time, which I really appreciated.
I did too.
I did think it was weird, though, that our university had, if you were an honors program, you got to sign up actually the year ahead of your classmates. So if you're a freshman, but you're in honors, then you actually got to sign up with the sophomores, thus giving you access to more classes.
Which is pretty fun.
That was pretty cool, but I never was in honors, so I was just like, just choose what I could do at the time.
Yeah, I thought it was funny when somebody was a senior and then decided to join the honors group. Yeah. It's like you lost the perks. Inside the lectures, we both have 2 different backgrounds for high school. Right. I was homeschooled and had no lectures to listen to. and Josh was public schooled and only had lectures to listen to.
Yeah.
So our note-taking strategies ended up being very different. So what was your note-taking strategy?
So I have a confession to make, and I've never told you this, but in high school, I never really took notes.
You never took notes?
It's really bad. I mean, in like my Spanish class and in my math class I did, but largely after that, there wasn't a whole lot of like formal lecturing that really happened. Like it was a lot of like assignments and projects and in-class stuff. So in my mind, I felt like the assignment was the notes, which was wrong. So when I went to university, I really shifted gears and I started to do where I would write down everything the professor said as much as I could, as much as I can handle. So I didn't really do a whole lot of organization. I literally just did. He started the lecture and I would just keep my hand moving the whole time, just writing straight down the page, flip it over, straight down the page, just keep going nonstop. And then after that, for the exams, what I would do is I would take all that information and I would organize it a little bit better.
Right. So having 2 or 3 exams in one course was actually helpful to you because then you didn't have like an entire notebook to go through.
Right. Yeah. It was a way for me to review, but also a way for me to remember exactly what the professor said. And sometimes that actually was worse because the professor would go kind of off on a tangent.
Yes.
I would follow the tangent. My notes would be filled with what the professor actually said. So sometimes it was not so good, but most of the time when I got back on the final exam, if they had a study guide, then I would look at what I wrote down.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I understand what he said.
Yeah, because you could recall the classes more specifically that way.
Right. Got it. Because it was kind of flow of thought.
Right, yeah.
What about for you?
I could not do that. I started to try to do that, but I'm not an oral learner at all. Like, I don't hear and remember something. I have to do it. So for me, it worked best to write those notes, but only the most important key points. I would put the professor's transition phrases in the left margin of the page. Yeah. So if he says, and this is not as important, but here is blank, like in a history class or something, I would say, okay, I had symbols. I had symbols for different transition phrases. So it was kind of like the method that we've talked about before in our note-taking video. But in this way, I was able to organize things, so I was able to note those key changes. And if the professor made it sound like it wouldn't be very important, I just didn't write it. I just put a symbol and didn't write that. So I had a slight organization over here and I would make a note. I would put a star at the top of the page to fill in something in case I didn't have time to mark it and I know there was something and I'm going to forget if I don't come back to it right away. So I would put a star on some notes that I would have to review right away and I would fix it at lunchtime, or if my class was closed, I'd fix it in between classes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like that was a really good way to like take in the information?
Yeah, and it worked better for some classes than others. There were some classes that I just didn't care. But I would write the notes for them still, and I would do a good job with the information. It's just I didn't care as much. But there were other classes where I really cared, and I wanted to know that information, so I would go above and beyond for those. Yeah. And so, but there was definitely a difference in the notes that I took for class I really didn't care about versus one that I really wanted to know.
So then what did you do in homeschool then? How did you, because you still had to listen to something. Yeah. Right?
Well, there were little tiny videos every now and then, like 2-minute videos that would appear beside a section. So if it needed more, or if they felt it was more important to have a voice there, they would put that there. But otherwise, I took notes based off of the information. So I got really good at knowing what the main idea of different sections was and how to identify how lessons were structured. I got really good at that in homeschool because my notes literally consisted of the main idea of each section and then the overall purpose of that lesson.
So literally, when you think of the word like schooling or a lesson, do you think of like a page?
I think of an outline.
Wow.
Yeah. For you would think of like a class.
I think of a teacher. Yeah. I think of a whiteboard, a teacher. I think of desks.
Yeah, no, I think of an outline or a lesson like on a page.
Wow.
Yeah, or my books. I did a lot of readings, like encyclopedias and stuff. So I think of like words on a page. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
So when you received information in a syllabus, Okay, at the beginning, first day of class, the first week of classes, when you see that, and you start receiving that regular homework, like do a class, get homework at the end of the class, you have to turn it in by the next. What order did you tackle the homework that was given? Like, if, let's say you have homework and you have quizzes to prepare for, you have reading assignments, and you have like a written summary or a project, something like that. What order would you attack those projects?
I think I'm most commonly used which ways I can make the most progress, like in a planner. I get like a notepad, and then I would like write down what I had to do that day.
Yeah.
And I would go from the, not just the easiest, but the shortest. So sometimes
like
it was very,
accomplished.
Yeah. So I could actually see the check marks happen on the page, as opposed to like tackle one big thing at the start of the day. And it's like, wow, it took me all day to get this one thing done. But I mean, that's the longest thing. I would actually, I was more of a procrastinator, so I would save that until the end so I can be like, hey, I did 5 things today. That's nice. As opposed to saying, I did 1 thing today.
It was like your built-in motivation system.
Right, yeah. I was like, I need some motivation, so I'll check these things off as soon as I can. It wasn't always quickest first, but sometimes it was things that obviously had to be done before others, like a reading. Had to be done before the quiz. Even the quiz only takes 10 minutes and the reading takes an hour. So, I mean, there was like that, but that was my goal, is I want to check off as many things as fast as possible.
That's awesome. See, for me, it was different than that. I had to think about the brain power and the energy required for the assignment. If there was an assignment that I really needed to pay attention to, even if it was the most difficult, I would do that one first.
Whoa.
Because I am a morning person. So, and all my classes were always in the morning. I always signed up for like the earliest classes I could get. And my goal was to be done at lunch every day so I could go to work, do my homework, do social things after that. So for me, my goal, as the day wore on and I finally got to homework, I would do the things that I had the most energy for first. But if it was busy work, like if the professor was giving me like a quick quiz, a check quiz, for example, like read this article and take this quiz, and it was busy work, then
you'd save that?
I would save that towards the end. Yeah. Because I can read and answer a quiz pretty quick. Like,
that's true.
I can do that by skim reading. I don't have to like do really hard paying attention to things to do that. But if I had a paper due, you bet I would sit there and do all the research in the library. I was that one person there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon doing lots of research and writing a paper, because if I wrote that paper after 9 p.m., it would be awful. So I wanted the things that carried my grade to be the first thing that I worked on.
I mean, that obviously makes sense. I feel like a lot of it is kind of like how some people will say, like, just watch this video, or in math, it was just answer this one question. But really, it comes down to like, oh, the video is 2 hours long, or the question has 26 parts or whatever. I feel like if you could quantify that number, that would be extremely useful for a lot of people.
It would be so useful.
This is the average time it takes a person to complete this assignment.
Well, not just time, though. Effort. Effort. Like, how awake do I have to be to do this thing?
Right. If you could quantify that effort, then I feel like that would give a lot of people a lot more direction to be like, I'm going to do the thing, like you said, that takes the most effort. For me, I'm just like, I see 5 things, I need to get these 5 things done. And so I saved the project for the end because I guess I procrastinate.
The last thing you wanted to do was to get through the effort of this big thing and then find out you have 4 more things to do.
Right, exactly. That would be like the worst case scenario.
That's funny. Yeah, we were very opposite on that in school. We both ended up graduating really well. Don't think one of us is better than the other. It's just every person has their own unique way to do things.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that's it. Those are our questions. As you noticed, we didn't use all of the phrasal verbs from earlier this week. And that's not the point. The point is to get some natural listening so that you can see these phrasal verbs come up in context. You can see them on the screen so that you can know how to use them in other contexts.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for watching, and keep an eye out next week because we're going to do part 2 with the phrasal verb video and conversation video on education next week.
All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.